There we go. So this is the second day, the root of our youth teaching, but we have events lined up for every single day of this week. So tomorrow, my organization and myself will be hosting a session on the state of ethnic studies in Washington State. We'll be taking a look at some of the legislation that's been passed, that's being proposed. Most of it's good, but a lot of it is bad. A lot of it is anti-critical race theory. It's happening in our state. It's not just the southern states. So there will be an update on that and some of the organizing around supporting ethnic studies and opposing this anti-intellectualism movement. And then Thursday, the NAACP Youth Council and School Seattle Deserves will be hosting a talent show, Young, Gifted, and Black.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's exciting. That's been happening every single year of the Black Lives Matter at School Week. So it's really fun and full of energy. Unfortunately, because of COVID, they've had to take it online the past couple of years, and it's going to be online this year, but still should be exciting to watch. And then Friday, the youth voted to support a statewide walkout to remind people that we are in a dual pandemic. And so the topic of the walkout discussions will be the intersection of race and COVID and how it disproportionately negatively impacts communities of color. And then after the walkout, they're calling for a walkout at noon. And then Fernell and I will be here on Zoom on the 4th to facilitate discussions at 6 p.m. So all of these things are free to register, and the link is right there on the graphic, waethnicstudies.com/BLM, and I'll put that in the chat.
Perfect. Beautiful. Thank you, Tracy. And that brings us to our topic here around mental health. And I have a few youth in the room and more are coming. And so as we get started, I'm going to start exactly the way that our youth do when they meet on Wednesdays for our Wednesday circle. Oops, I clicked the wrong one. Sorry, let me go back. Hold on. Escape. That's what I get for doing without my glasses. Escape that for a second, and I want to get to the right screen. And it's just a visual check-in to, now I'm going to blow it up, slideshow. Let me know when you can see a collage of pictures. It's loading bigger. Here we go. There it goes. And see which one you might resonate with tonight. And since it's a little bit small group, go ahead and put that in the chat, which number you might resonate with and why, and or speak that out loud if you like. That's just kind of our warm-up check-in, a little breakout session just to check in to see how you're showing up tonight. And again, I appreciate you being here. This is something I would love to get out, broadcast more. And so it's going to be on the YouTube channel, as Tracy said. So hopefully that will be shared and their words will be heard and recognized, believed, acted on, and empower them to do so. So a quick check-in. Let's see where we're at. What number are you? Damaris, I see you're in the room. Would you like to start us off? I'll put a chat order in for us. Any of those resonate with you?
I'm feeling the cat number 10 right now. The sleeping cat. For so many reasons. Oh my goodness. But probably mostly because I'm having some late nights recently, and my cat has always been there for me every single night without end.
Nice.
Does she just want attention? Probably, but it's nice to have that.
Nice. I see, and thank you, Damaris. I see another youth in the room. Alyssa, how about you? How are you checking in? Or maybe I might be doing that wrong, but let me check in with you. I like youth to go first.
Nice you think I'm a youth. I'm not a youth. I
know.
I'm a youth at heart, but I'm getting
yes.
middle-aged in actuality. But I'll check in because I am young at heart. So I'm feeling the crunch of time, and that's just the layers of life.
Yeah.
Cleaning up for dinner and the kids, wanting to be here and being split focused and being off there. So
Yes.
that's how I'm feeling.
Yeah. Thank you. And Crystal, how about you? We're just checking in if you can see the pictures on the screen. Is there a picture that resonates with you? It's always an invitation, never a demand, but if you'd like to put that in the chat or speak it out loud, we're just taking a minute to check in with each other. And if you'd like to pass, that's all okay too. And I see Jessica Ramirez is here with us tonight. I'm so glad. Thank you, Jessica. Would you like to check in?
Yeah, hi everyone. I was just finishing up dinner. I feel like I'm feeling like a one. I'm really excited, always excited actually to hear the youth and just hear their voices, listen to their stories, and also just supporting them through along the way. So yeah, happy to be here and look forward to sharing space with y'all.
Beautiful. Thanks for being here tonight. Good. I see Miss Davis, Miss Marley Davis and Karen Burns. Would you two like to check in, Marley? I know she's cooking dinner and doing a million things in the background too. And Karen, how about you? Hi.
Hi. Yeah, I'm just here because I love listening to the Root of Our Youth kids and all the students. I'm here for support. Looking forward to it.
Beautiful. Always glad you're here in the room. This is just one of the ways we humanize ourselves to each other, just checking in on the day, giving a little response to how we might feel doing pictures. So Abdi, would you like to close us out? Any check-in for you? Any of the pictures resonate?
Actually, the resume is not with me right now, but I have been working for here a long time. And I was in the field of education. All my careers was education field, but I don't have from, I just joined teaching my schools at home, back home in 1980. So all that long, I was just a teacher in our education system. And as long as I was here from 2002, only a few years when I was new here, I was just working for another field of not education for 5 years. After 5 years, I joined to the education system, Seattle Public Schools. And I was helping those students, instructional assistant. So I like it very much. And I appreciate working with the individuals who are educators, teachers, and all the supporters, all kinds of stuff here. And I have got a more experience.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Glad you're here. We enjoyed meeting you last night. Thanks for being here.
Okay, thank you too.
And another one of the practices that we do to help with the container, just to share space together, is to do a ground in, and we'll get to do that in just a second. Part of our values as we gather as youth, and what has grounded our work, is we collaborate with educational, government, and nonprofit organizations in the service of racial healing and intersectional social justice. Our intergenerational approaches are rooted in trauma-informed, healing-centered practices that foster structures by which students and families make policies that impact their day-to-day experience. And we work with the Equity Institute and positions historically marginalized communities as critical researchers, transformative intellectuals, counter storytellers, and empowered knowledge producers. And part of the way that we work together is online, in person, Wednesdays is our meeting days. Thursday is just our mental health day where we hang out and do homework and humanize more. Fridays, we have a becoming class that we just keep talking about what kind of people we are becoming and want to become with Erin Jones. And so here's a point that we are going to ground in. So I'm asking us to put down whatever's in our hands and put our feet on the floor. Can have eyes open or close, or pick a focal point to look at, screen on or off, however you're comfortable. We're going to do about 30 seconds of deep breathing to help bring ourselves more present, let our bodies know that we are safe and secure in this moment and supported, and to connect with each other here tonight. So I invite you to ground in with us. This is research based on showing our brain and nervous system that we are grounded, stable, and safe. And we can do this practice anywhere, anytime, just to bring us back to our core and hold ourselves in a state of being. So I invite you to do that now. Thank you. And with our last 3 breaths, I invite you to let your body do what it needs to do to stretch, shake, shout, stand, however you feel comfortable, to bring yourself centered and present, and to be in community with us here this evening. And again, our Wednesday night youth circles, we practice youth participatory action research. And we also have an experience where we can get credit as well as compensation. And we like to invite youth into this space to be able to share their brilliance. And I'll stop this share for a second. And be recognized and acknowledged for the contributions that they have to offer. Those who say that we support education should actually show that by how we link arms and center our youth and follow their lead. And so here I just want to share the video of their complete teach-in, which is a youth, a college age, and a elder. They take the lead on different topics on Black Lives Matter in school. This is what we've been doing our rallies and teach-ins on, and taking a topic. And so we've been concentrating and focus on youth mental health, and made that the umbrella for that holds all of our issues that have come up. And so this was done in May of 2021. It was so powerful that we wanted to publish their op-ed as well as share their words and videos. So I'm going to jump right into it and let you witness them firsthand. So here it goes, another screen share. We're going to hear from our Executive Director of Equity Institute, Vincent Perez, and he's leading our teach-ins. And let me know when you see the black screen and play.
All right, welcome back.
Are you seeing that?
I want to invite the root of our youth. We also
No,
have
for now we can't see anything.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
To
How about
kick
now?
us off with
There we go. Yep.
their op-ed that they wrote for the Seattle Times, and then to tell a story of how that came to be. And so I'll pass it to the root of our youth. Mental health from the perspective of BIPOC student activists, by the root of our youth. Without tangible mental health support, students, especially BIPOC, have been left to fend for ourselves throughout remote learning. In an attempt to remedy the emotional damage caused by the abrupt closing of schools, The recent switch to hybrid learning has ironically been handled in the same haphazard manner, with the causes of these mental complications remaining unaddressed. Our education system teaches students that academic success holds greater value than our health. We're in a position where we must suppress our mental and emotional needs to survive. When the pandemic hit, we suddenly had the time and space to express ourselves freely, leading us to recognize the severity of our struggles and the damages imposed by the education system. While the school environment has its faults, isolation has made the management of mental health and academic success increasingly difficult. Numerous elements of in-person school cannot be recreated online, such as connecting and collaborating with peers and effective communication with teachers. There is little to no opportunity for teamwork, a skill we've been conditioned to depend on since primary school. We were taken out of an environment rich in support and dropped into seclusion. Additionally, it's impossible to replicate the structure and discipline on-campus school brings, and the collective focus of students has crumbled. Experiencing our independent performance to be on par with such on campus is entirely unrealistic. Furthermore, we're struggling to set boundaries within our spaces. Our bedrooms have become a place for in-class learning, homework, leisure, and rest. Even our devices fail to divide work and play. We're in a productivity limbo and losing the dichotomy between academia and relaxation. Despite forced adjustments brought on by the pandemic, we're still obligated to perform at impossible standards. These expectations have an undeniable toll on the mental health of all students. However, it's important to acknowledge that white supremacy culture amplifies this effect on BIPOC students. Characteristics of white supremacy culture include perfectionism, sense of urgency, quantity over quality, and individualism. The foundational whiteness of our educational system remains undetected or ignored by our white educators and peers. While it's true that all students feel a need to maintain proximity to whiteness, for BIPOC, this benchmark is impossible for us to reach, making us vulnerable to feelings of failure. On top of coping with white supremacy culture, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, students are forced to endure the school environment despite the racial harassment we may face on a daily basis. Due to the persistent trauma of racial violence, most notably the increased coverage of police brutality, BIPOC are strikingly aware of our experience in an environment that wasn't made for us. Lack of acknowledgement or blatant insensitivity pressures us into hiding our hardship without any support. In not addressing the specific needs of BIPOC students, you're failing us. The task of advocating for mental health is placed time and time again on the shoulders of the same students that haven't had a break since August. This is not sustainable. Student activists are rapidly burning out, trying to regulate our mental health whilst supporting others. This cycle of trauma, exhaustion, and fruitless labor begs disruption. We need solution. They've been feeble attempts at extending support in the online setting. There have been feeble attempts at extending support in the online setting. However, much of that responsibility has been set on students. Furthermore, said quote support unquote boils down to tired out advice on hotline numbers. Though these problems seem insurmountable, better solutions to these challenges exist. Youth have the power to demand change, but it's up to adults to take action. Forcing BIPOC students to forfeit our innocence and solve problems manufactured by generations of white supremacy exemplifies the lack of accountability of people in power. It isn't our responsibility to solve systemic issues that have been neglected for decades. Youth mental health must be prioritized without the burden of change resting on the victims of the system. It should not take 650 words for adults to notice that we are at our breaking point.
And I pause there to take a breath and to, before we go on, to invite response to that. If that's the first time you've heard their 650-word essay, I invite you to unmute and offer response. It's always an invitation, never a demand, but just to acknowledge what was what you just heard. And I invite any youth that are in the room to go first if they like. And again, you said what you said, so I understand.
Yeah, that was actually the first time that I heard the because I guess somehow wasn't not part of of the process for that op-ed, but that was really cool. Yeah, hearing that. Oh my gosh, we should do. It would have been cool to have like each person that helped write it read like a different section. Just a thought, but yeah, I know that's definitely like something that I feel like that all the people that are involved with the root of our youth some way or another really embody what was said in those 650 words. And so yeah, it's pretty cool stuff.
We want to read your written testimony too later too, so have that ready so we can have you read it and share, okay? Other response?
Hi, it's Tracy. I had to switch to my phone, so I'm keeping my camera off because the phone makes you look funky all the time. I really love how the youth brought home your point that they've already said it. Like, why they keep having to go back? Why do they have to write an op-ed in the Seattle Times? When the youth were advocating for their rights with the Seattle School Board and ethnic studies, they would show up every single school board. Where is our ethnic studies? Where is our ethnic studies? And one of the school board directors, applauded them for their efforts and their advocacy, but then told them, you got to keep showing up. Why? It's your adult, you're the adult, it's your job. You ran for this position. It's your responsibility to take what the students are telling you and make it happen. And so I really appreciated that part of the op-ed.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I think for me, I got here a little late, so I only caught the tail end of it, but it really something just kind of clicked when he said it shouldn't take 659 words. 650
that
words.
We're in.
So when I think about that, I'm like, I tell my own kids, hey, I'm gonna say it one time. Pay attention, I'm only gonna say it one time. And as adults, even though there's times we may say that to our youth, we need to practice that ourselves because it should not take 650 times or 650 words to get that point across.
Exactly. That's why I said, oh no, you don't need to come tonight. I'm just going to play your words again. Go ahead, Jessica, if you had to.
No, I was just I mean their op-ed is powerful, right? And even their continued participation and leadership in a lot of these spaces is powerful. I think the one thing that I'm thinking about, and it's not necessarily a question for the youth, but more so like for the adults. And I feel like a lot of us are doing this work and we show up, but more so for adults that aren't here or aren't in these spaces is like, they wrote this a year and a half ago.
Right.
So like what has changed? Like, that's what I'm thinking about. Like what has changed for the youth that are now not like maybe have graduated, for youth who are continuing like being in these spaces of harm and trauma and oppression and having to like continuously deal with this over and over. And so that's just like what's I'm thinking about right now is like what has changed, because we're still in a pandemic. Like we're still having youth voice that they're not getting the curriculum, the ethnic studies curriculum, the Black Lives Matter curriculum that they want, that they need. And so I'm not sure what folks have been doing this last year. I don't know. And so that's what I'm thinking about. And so just saying that out loud for everyone, but yeah.
That's again why they're walking out on Friday, because we're not listening. We're not doing anything. We're not moving the needle on what they need. So thank you. And Alyssa, help me.
Olisa.
Olisa, thank
Yeah, I'm thankful for the words of the young genius, the young folks who are standing up, speaking out. But with that, I can't help but take a moment to recognize the irony of using a newspaper mechanism of white supremacy to address white supremacy. Always just this moment of just, oh, isn't that ironic? You know? So I just want to appreciate that and recognizing that piece. I'm coming, baby.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you being here in the midst of that too. So I'm going to continue the video, and then you'll hear each youth speak about how it came about, how they put it together, what their thoughts were. I think that's important to hear behind the scenes. So if we're ready to move forward and do that. Oh, wait, Marley says, sorry, I wasn't paying attention to the working meeting that I see. Okay, gotcha, Marley. Let's make the op-ed required. Let's make the op-ed required reading for English civics courses, staff, and to get this conversation started. Agreed. So thank you for putting that in the chat to do that. Okay, let's continue.
Little team breath there. And students, I'll let you, as the authors, can one of you put in a speaking order for yourselves here? And I simply want to hear how you all came to this. And so I don't want to necessarily put somebody who wasn't part of the.
I'm helping to skip forward a little bit to get it.
Thank you for letting me read that. It was your words up power.
Yeah.
So as we get ready for the speaking order, would anyone like to begin, and then we'll go from there?
Okay, here comes Dia next.
Thank you, Molly.
And what we use is a speaking order protocol.
I'm first on the speaking order. Yeah, I think I definitely did not, have the opportunity to help out on it as much as all of the other wonderful people did. But I did, I'm very grateful for the opportunity to have been involved in like the starting process and the writing process of making this op-ed. I can say that it was definitely a group effort. The original document in which we wrote the op-ed and like drafts was pages and pages and pages long. I think so. As students, we were told, everything you need to say 650 words, and so I think it was a lot of brainstorming and then like editing and more brainstorming and editing, and it was a very sorry, no words, but like that's the thing. It was an amazing experience in that it was so collective, that we were all contributing our ideas and we were all contributing things to say, and that we were all focusing and giving light to different issues that we might want to talk about. And so it's interesting to me that like what you see now is much different than what we had 2 weeks ago. So yeah, it was a lot of hours on Zoom sitting together and like poring over minute details and sentences, going, how can we fix this or how can we change it? So I'm very, very grateful to have been working with these wonderful, smart people, and seeing that just our collective work can do so much good.
Yeah. Okay. So when we were first like offered to do this op-ed on mental health by Eric Corman, but he only gave gave us like a really broad subject of mental health. So once we all kind of came together, we were like, okay, what do we like really need to focus on? Because in mental health, there's so many different angles and so many different aspects that we can go on. And people have been screaming about mental health throughout this pandemic. So what is something that we could write that they like really need to hear that hasn't been said that much? And that's BIPOC's mental health. So we decided to really focus this on BIPOC mental health specifically, because the way people have been approaching this pandemic and mental health in the pandemic, it is very, very general and very, very like white and privileged, that they don't realize that BIPOC students have been suffering long before the pandemic, and they will continue to suffer now if there isn't actual change. So we decided to highlight that in our op-ed. And like Malavika said, it was definitely a collaborative effort, which is really cool. We all got to contribute part of it, and we were all on the same page too, which was really, really nice. And we got to get it done really fast. And there was definitely a lot of struggles with like bringing the word count down, because 650 words, y'all, that's not enough, you know, but like there's so many things that could have been said and so many things that we can continue to say, but the work that we've come up with and what the final product is, I think we're all really proud of it. So yeah, and I'm really glad that it came out like this too. And I really hope that people read it and finally acknowledge the real issues in our culture and our system. So yeah, and I pass it to Zaina.
Hi. I think when it comes to our op-ed, we definitely could have cut down time. Like it took a lot of time just because we're all friends, and we spent a lot of time messing around, which I actually loved. I think it made the op-ed a lot better just because we're like, oh, we're all friends here, and we just like throw ideas out and hope for the best. There was definitely a lot of revisions, like everybody said. I think we got to a point where we're like, yeah, this is kind of good. And then Marlo came in and she was like, hi, can I read it? And we're like, yeah. And then she read it and she was like, you know, it's not really giving what I think it needed to give. So we just kind of went back and like kept doing that. We had a lot of brain breaks. A session that I was in, I had started Sims like before we started writing, and then like halfway through they just saw me like screaming and panicking with my mic off, and they were like, what's wrong? And I was like, my Sims baby got taken away and her roommates got kicked out, and she's about to die. And so like we had a lot of those type of brain breaks. So even though this is a very serious topic, we had a lot of fun doing it. And I think probably my biggest takeaway from this op-ed is that I made a lot of friends in the root of our youth. And I pass to Thea.
Okay. It was a process. It was kind of rough at first, not gonna lie. We don't talk about the first meeting. That was a mess. We like sat on Zoom for like 2 hours and we did not complete anything. We spent like an hour trying to like find a metaphor, and then we were like, we don't have time for this. We don't have words for this. This is not the move. But it got better. I think the longest Zoom we had was like 5 hours, maybe 6 hours. They're saying more, probably 6 hours. And then there was one night, the first night that we really like cracked down on it. I started working at 4, and then we got on Zoom at 6, and we got off Zoom at 11. Like we were just working. But like Zayna said, like it was fun. It was really fun, and we did take breaks. At one point, I left to go make macaroni, and then I had to go to the grocery store to get milk. So it's like not super important to the op-ed, but it was very funny. And like made the work better. It's like I went to go get milk, and the whole thing was like empty, and so I took a picture because I was like, this looks fake. And I had to tell everyone, like, guys, there was no milk. I'm sorry, I was gone. But like we did that. We had things where like we would take breaks. It wasn't like 6 hours straight of work. But anyways, it was very fun. And like I had to bring out, first of all, it's the root of our youth journal, but I had to bring it out because this is, yeah, my mac and cheese is notorious. But this was like the first, this is how it started. It was just this whole page, and I just like wrote out the whole thing. And to look at this now and then look at how it's done is so good. And like Zaina was saying too, like it saw so many versions, and we like read through and changed everything, read through and changed everything. And I feel like each and every paragraph had its own like little glow up and like transformation. And I think my favorite part too was like, as you read it and you see like a sentence that you're like, oh wow, like that's a zinger, that's a Zayna zinger. You're like, those are the sentences that we all wrote together, like collectively. This is one sentence we all sat down, we're like, we need to fix this. And so we would bring in words, everyone had their like the sources up, and we're like, okay, like how are we gonna find like the best way to say this. And it was super, super fun and really just a team effort. 100%. It was awesome. And when we finished it, that was so good. And it's 650 words. I think the first, like, I would say finished draft was like 900, maybe more. It was bad. We sat and we cut down so much, and we could have said so much more, but I think that it's really concise, and I think it's a starting point. I think it's what it is. And it packs a good punch. So I'm really proud of it, and I'm really proud of everyone that worked on it. And I need to pull up the speaking order. I pass to Tara.
Okay, when we say it was bad, that it was like too long, it was like so good that it was too long, but we had to cut it out because white supremacy culture or something. So yeah, it was just such a shame that we had so much to say and such a small word count to say it. That was like barely an essay, and we somehow made it together. But yeah, I hope we can find a way to take all of our ideas that we had to cut out and put in something that is equally as powerful. But it was a lot of teamwork, but also I think the real hero was Sia. And I know you're humble, but you were the hero in this, because the first meeting was a nightmare. It was so bad. It was like 10 people trying to all go in different directions. We had like our own little paragraph that we were gonna like somehow mash together, and it was a mess. And then Fia was like, okay, just write down all of your ideas, and I'm gonna go in and put them together in like a mock draft, and then we'll go through and edit it together. And that's what they did. And it took them, I don't even know how long, because our draft was a mess. So thank you for that. Also, there's one day when Sia like texted me and was like, hey, I'm like working on this. Do you want to FaceTime and like work on it together? And that was at like 6 o'clock, but they had been working since 4. So that was 2 hours. And then me and Sia worked on it until like 8 or something. And then we got on a Zoom with everyone else and worked on it till 11. So there were so many hours that Sia put in that really just pulled it together. Really, like if there was ever like any kinks that had to be worked out, it was Sia that did that. So thank you for being the oil to our machine. I think the best part about this was that this wouldn't have happened if we had to do this like a couple months ago. This wouldn't have happened because we were all so nice and like so like scared to step on anyone's toes. We'd be like, oh no, like that's okay, your idea is great, like we can like make this work. But like when we were doing this together, there's so much honesty and truth that like we weren't afraid to say like, this is not good, let's change it. But like in a way that was so productive and like cooperation. We just worked so well together. We weren't afraid to hurt each other's feelings because we were nice to each other. We didn't hurt each other's feelings, but like, you know what I mean? Like when there's people that you know so well, you work so well together, it just happens and everything falls together and it's perfect. And that's what that was. Yeah, and also, I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot, but we were talking about all of these issues about how students are like put into these positions to advocate for mental health. And we were experiencing the exact same thing that we were writing about. We had this deadline that turned out to be fake, and then we had all of this like miscommunication, and it was like exactly what we were writing about. So everything that's in that article is completely 100% true, and we were experiencing it as we were writing it. So yeah. And I passed to Marlo.
Okay, so I jumped in on the editing and revising end pretty late in the game. And one of my, like, content-wise, I think my favorite part of the op-ed is the one where we talk about white supremacy culture characteristics. I learned about these from Fernell and Aaron and Dr. Self's podcast, shameless plug, All the Things PNW. And once you learn about these white supremacy culture characteristics, you're looking for them everywhere, and you see them everywhere in your life. They're everywhere. And so like, we're writing about these white supremacy culture characteristics: urgency, perfectionism, what else? Quality or quantity over quality. And we're also being held to these standards by this like fake deadline, this word count, this like vague yet specific prompt. And so that's been kind of symbolic of the frustration we've had over the last couple of months, is like, fix our system, but do it while obeying our rules. So that was very frustrating for us. But like, when you look for it more, you get better at coping with it. You know what I mean? And I don't know, I was grateful for all of these beautiful minds who would put all their hard work into this. And I didn't like, it gave what it was supposed to give the first time. It just needed a little sparkle. So yeah, I was just very happy to be included in the process. And I was super happy with the way it came out. Man, like, if this is like the median of all of our thinking, like, I'm very happy with it. And I'll pass to Dia.
Yeah, I mean, I also joined pretty late. So like, when we started the op-ed, I was having like a crazy week, and I mostly worked like sort of to help edit and get our word count down, because the word count was definitely a big issue for us. We have so many ideas, and it's really, really hard to put that all in a neat little box that fits in a neat little convenient package that makes sense to everybody. You know, there's like a lot of constraints, and you have to modify and explain your thinking to fit certain audiences. But my favorite part of the op-ed is probably the conclusion, just because it's a straight up like call out. It's literally just like, we had to put this in 650 words, and we have to advocate for ourselves again and again. And that's messed up. So I think that part was really, really fun. Shout out to Tara for that, because that was her idea. But really shout out to everyone, because like, when I joined, it was mostly a finished product, and it was amazing. Like, the one sentence about like the dichotomy of academia or whatever, y'all are so smart. Like, that's amazing. That's so, so good. I've seen op-eds by adults that were way worse than that. To be fair, I'm a harsh critic. But yeah, I just appreciate this process so much. And I appreciate the message of the op-ed too. The amount of thinking behind that message, the amount of hours behind that message is a lot. There's a lot of work in there. And I hope that it gets to audiences that appreciate it. And I hope that it gets to a wider audience too, because I think people really need to hear it. So fingers crossed, someone actually publishes it other than us. And I pass to Molly.
Yeah, so first of all, I just want to say, in addition to everyone else, Fia, you literally carried this. Like you said, we were flattering you, but like, anytime we get on, like, we would get off track, I feel like because you're neurodivergent, you know what it's like to be constantly getting off track, and but you were like viewing it from the outside perspective. So you were like, okay, guys, what's going on here? And also shout out to Zaina, because she literally had to like babysit us on one of our calls, because when me and Fia are in calls together, there's like a 100% less likely chance of work occurring. And then also I just wanted to mention, like, it was Dia K's original writing that included the description of white supremacy culture to the op-ed, and I think it's literally like crucial at this point. Like, it literally made the entire article. Like, that is just what the article is. And so just like combined, like, thank you. And then, yeah, the process of it, I don't know. I felt like the first meeting was kind of like nobody really knew what was happening. And there was a couple people in it who maybe like didn't really fully end up working on the end piece, but they wanted to bring in topics that weren't, while important, they weren't exactly what our focus was. But then by the time we got to the like second and third meetings, like we pretty quickly realized that it needed to be focused on like mental health and BIPOC mental health in schools. And yeah, it was kind of an interesting method that we went about beginning it. It started out as like a weird metaphor thing, and then we were like, that's really weird. Why are we trying to, this is very bad. It's no. And then eventually, like Tara had mentioned, Fia just like sat down and like took what was good there. Like she took the meat and then they added in like the seasoning to the meat, and like it just made it like so much better. But yeah, in terms of the topics in the op-ed, I think focusing on mental health was like a really good point for the op-ed, and I did think it was very funny that like everyone else has already mentioned, we did have like a fake deadline for this, and then we didn't know it was a fake deadline, so then we were trying to figure out if it was a fake deadline, and then we were being told like that like we couldn't have our like questions answered because it was vacation, but it was like we were also on vacation, so it was like what's happening. But then we had that one day where it was the Zoom link was like open and people could come and go. And I think that was such a good idea. Sadly, I didn't attend because I have school. But like, I think that the process was just really good, and it's something we don't see in a lot of different like creative spaces, is like people just kind of self-regulating. Like there wasn't one person in charge of the project. There wasn't like a hierarchical position of power over it, because we just don't do that root of our youth as a whole. Yet the op-ed still came out a lot better than people who do things by that kind of system of power of like, I'm in charge, this is my decision, this is my vision, and this is how it goes. And I think the reason it ended up so good is because we didn't treat it like that. Like we were able to embrace what each other's writing was like strong. And then if it was bad, we would literally just like be like, hey homie, we're gonna have to cut this out. I'm sorry, it's not making it. You didn't make the team for this one. But like it was fine because we all like said it respectfully, and we all just knew like we're just trying to do this and achieve our goal. And like if something's not achieving it, we're gonna move it out. And so I think that was like really healthy. And also for now, earlier you put something in the chat where you said like writing this was like therapy. And like for certain calls that we did have, I kind of like agree with that, at least for me. I don't know about other people who worked on it, but like it was just really nice to be in a space with only students where we were just like expressing our thoughts and then trying to like synthesize them into something that was coherent. I think it kind of sucks we had to have a 650 word count, because like that's a pretty short amount of time to be addressing like a huge population of students' issues facing racism in school and how it impacts their mental health. Like 650 words is like one singular breath of everything that could be said. But regardless, I think that all of the people who worked on this did an amazing job, because it has come out so professional. Like reading it, it feels like it's already been submitted to like every single city's like Times newspaper already, because it sounds good, it makes sense, and it works. And I think that's the biggest thing to take away from this, is just the way that we went about creating it, and the fact that the end goal was good, and what that says about white supremacy culture, and how it's really not necessary to get the goal that you desire. And I mean, like we kind of all spoke, so I pass to nobody.
I'm going to pause there and come back to you. and take a breath on all of that as you got to see the participants and some of the just hear their thoughts and processes. I'll give you a chance to respond to that or what might have resonated with you on what they were speaking about. And Tracy, I see your hand up. Is that, I'm not sure how long your hand's been up. Sorry, go ahead. Oh, if you're there, go ahead and start.
I'm here. I just want to, this is a teach-in, right? So I have my teacher hat on as I'm listening to this. And I just picked, I was looking more for the pedagogical moves that I was hearing, the learning that I was hearing. And so what I picked up on was the collaboration, of course, is huge, but above and beyond collaboration, there was clearly a community among the authors of this op-ed piece. And I want to point out a few things because, people have their misconceptions about what ethnic studies is. Oftentimes the people who are opposed to ethnic studies describe it as, a bunch of angry brown and black people sitting around plotting plotting murder and death and destruction on the government and white people, right? And so I really appreciated hearing from the students because there was joy. They were talking about how much fun they had, right? And they were doing very serious work, but they found time to make space for that joy and that community building and the love and appreciation. That was also clear how much they loved and appreciated each other. Especially one of the students made a comment about their peer being neurodivergent.
Mm-hmm.
In a classroom, in a school setting, that person would be seen as a deficit, but the students saw that person as a strength. And a strength that they brought to the work that they were doing. And so I just there's so much in here for teachers to learn about how the students are learning teaching themselves and learning with one another. I heard a lot of rigor, as an ethnic studies program manager and now director of Washington Ethnic Studies now. I hear a lot of people say, well, ethnic studies isn't rigorous. Like you can't, just take an ethnic studies course and call it government. You have to take the regular government class because it's more rigorous. Like what the students were doing was beyond what any classroom student would do in any course in high school, right? So you have the rigor there. And then also somebody recently said to me, ethnic studies means you have to give up reading and writing. And I was like, well, that's a huge assumption. Like, I think we just sit around and talk all day, like there's no academics involved. And so I really loved hearing the process of editing the document and talking about sentence structure and how they collaborated to work on sentence. So it was very clear that there's the academic component there in play as well. So I think, this would be a great video to show, aspiring ethnic studies educators to see how they can bring all of that into their classroom in the way that the students already know. They already know how to do this, right? Yeah. A lot of times it's just getting out of their way.
Yes, there you said it. Thank you so much, Tracy. That was all of that. I mean, the community that they have developed. While all this was going on, I would get text messages. And my favorite one is a midnight text from Tara, and she says, "This is all we've ever wanted. This is all we've ever wanted, was to share what we have inside, do it in a collaborative way, do it by ourselves, just get all that other stuff out of the way, collapse the hierarchy, and let us go." And you see, I mean, the brilliance, like I said, they said what they said. And if you could just watch how it was done and unfold, this is, like you said, this is beyond anything that kids get to an opportunity to do in any class. Their best brilliant move on here was to have an open Zoom all day, and they just kind of came and go. They rotated in. It was just beautiful, and they just had that respect for each other, how they held each other, how they worked together. They still do that. They still do that, and even though they've gone, some have graduated, and some are still here. They still revere this space, this Root of Our Youth space that holds them. They love that it's still here and going, whether they're here in it or not. Just knowing that there's a safe home place, a brave space for them to be, is giving them just life. And they did that. You know, we did that together. So thank you. Okay, I'm talking too much again. Go ahead. Next one. Any other thoughts or feedback from so far?
There's so much. There's so much. But to encapsulate I'm a strong believer in the power of collaboration. And I say often, like, I might be smart for myself, but we're just better together. You see things I don't see. You have a different positionality. And to hear the concepts of collaboration, which so many people that I work with in the world have such a hard time with, and they call it a soft skill, but as we know in the work, it's one of the hardest things that we do in this ego-driven white supremacist culture. It touched my heart and my brain and my teacher self and all of that. And then to hear about like just having a space, like a drop-in space, to collaborate in and give feedback in a positive way. It's like we were nice about it, but we should let you know the truth. I'm like, if it could only all be that way, how much better would it be? So I'm just really grateful for the work that y'all are doing, and happy that an invitation passed through my email today. So
nice, beautiful. Thank you. Such truth. We are better together. Other thoughts?
Yeah, so I guess that was also really cool to listen to. I know I was going back through my phone. I was like, what the heck was I doing in May last year? Which I guess I had sports and I just started hybrid learning. So I'm in another district, and so I feel like sometimes that I think made it like a little bit more tricky. But I think as far as like the collaboration goes, like that's something that I learned doing college apps, because that also had a 650 word limit. And so like it's interesting how me now, a year and a half later, it's like I'm able to like I was able to relate to everything that everybody was saying. I was like, oh my gosh, because I was like that was a process that sometimes I had a lot of heavy collaboration. Sometimes it was just me, and the times that it was like collaboration often were like the best work was produced. But no, it's terrible. The word limits. Oh my gosh, it's literally like it's you have to turn into a machine in order to to get the right formula. It is so bad that I think that's a whole nother podcast episode on its own. The college application process. Don't even get me started. But yeah, that's I'm taking an ethnic studies class now, actually, at my high school. They have ethnic studies and literature, social justice, and those are both classes that I'm taking. And it's interesting because like they're like supposed to be like, I was even talking to my teacher about this today, how these classes are supposed to be like the safe space for like the students of color, but then like you go into these classrooms and it's like still like not, we're still like in the minority even in these like ethnic diverse classrooms or classes, you know. And so but yeah, it's really like the Root of Our Youth has like that sense of community that they provide. It's a really special thing. It's really special, but I don't think it's unique. It's not like unique to this group of individuals either. That's totally something that could be that can be built at multiple different places, and doesn't have to be at a certain school, a certain place. Yeah, like most of the lost my train of thought, but I think the point I was trying to say was like here I am, like I've been able to kind of like bring some of that like sense of, or that's one of my goals, is like kind of create a similar sense of community, and if not community, just at least conversation with my peers and my classmates. And so yeah, I'm really grateful for the Root of Our Youth.
Yeah, and Damaris, you were at cross country practice when they were doing all of that. You were just new into that, and so.
Oh, okay, that's probably why. Yeah, it's pretty time consuming.
Yeah, so you were with us on Saturday. But the power of circle is what you're talking about. The creative art of holding space and having everybody's voice be valued and heard and seen and supported. Nobody's having to compete for time, space, energy, intellectual property. It's the beauty of collaboration, as Olisa said. So thank you, Damaris. You'll get to do many more, so be ready. Other thoughts? Jessica is in the chat. I want to read that out loud so it gets into the record. She says, I'm also thinking about how important and necessary it is for teachers, educators, and others to welcome and value the lived experiences of students, to bring their whole selves into learning spaces. Rather, in this video, I heard and saw how powerful it can be to bring our lived experiences and be able to write about them. Lastly, caring for each other, breaks, making food, and how important care work is just as important. Thank you, Jessica. That's exactly right. That helps carry into the joy, helps us learn how to self-care. And when we care for each other, that is caring for ourselves as well. So thank you. Okay, this next section is we had the youth go into their breakout room and the adults go into a breakout room to have some response, like what we're doing here, to what they read and what they said. So Karen, did you have something first before we go on? Go ahead.
Yes, just seeing that for the second time and seeing the joy and the hope of the kids after having that collaborative experience. And, you know, it saddens me that going back to usual has really meant going back to usual. And I loved what Damaris just said about it can be built. And I think we're looking at the adults in the systems, in the school system, to do that building, and too often put it aside, listen, and then just move on back. So it was just wonderful to hear the work that they've done.
Thank you. Then we're getting ready to see you in this video too then next. All right. Shall we go ahead? Dave, Abdi, anything from you too before we go, or Heidi?
Yeah, I think it's just important. You know, one thing I realized as I got older is regardless of whatever you experience, like you can never give up. So sometimes you may not get the results that you want right away. It's important to stay humble, you know, and understand that this is a marathon and not a sprint. And a lot of times when you take your time, everything, you know, it's like if you take your time and walk and touch everything, sometimes that's a lot better than running and just high-fiving people along the way. So, you know, I think it's, you know, it's important to know in this work, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. So sometimes, you know, sometimes you're knee deep, sometimes you're waist deep, and, you know, you're walking in all types of different, you know, thick muckety muck, but at the end of the day, it's just going to make you a stronger person. And personally, I wish I had a lot of the grit, a lot of the determination, a lot of the focus that these young adults have right now. I really didn't hit that until I got older. So you guys were just doing phenomenal work at such a young age. So just remember that.
Yeah. Thank you for that. It is beautiful to watch, isn't it? Thank you. Hi, Esther. Welcome.
Hi, I just realized it started at 6, not 7. Oh my goodness. How did it go?
You know what? It's going, and this is going to be so funny to you because you were at the live teach in, and you came a little bit late there. And so you had missed some of it. So you're coming in right at that point. So you're going to get to see it again and hear yourself even on video. So this is fun.
Okay, all right. Well,
so we just had it read, and then the students just talked about their processing. And so we were just responding to that. So let's keep going. We're on YouTube as well. So we're going to try to get as much of this in so folks can see it. And we'll pick it up right here where we've separated into 2 breakout groups now. So here we go. Which one do I want? I'll do this one. I'm not sure. Here we go. Let me know when you can see that. And I'm going to push play. And again, this is our Director of Equity Institute.
Right,
Vincent.
that you're really gonna like chew on. And what can or will you do after this learning experience? As for really taking this in. So
Wait, here's the question that he posed that we're going to respond to afterwards. I'm going to play that little pinch again here.
Is there a particular line or message that jumps out to you? What messages are you taking away, right? That you're really gonna like chew on, and what can or will you do after this learning experience? As for really taking this in. So our official class is scheduled till 10:25, and so we're gonna take 22 minutes. Your breakout rooms will shut out and they'll give you 15 seconds for anybody for the last wrap up. But choose your breakout room, read the op-ed one more time, and then
So here you'll get to hear it, Esther, one more time.
Of course, you all can do your popcorn however you want to as well. So invitation, not a demand. All right, I'm going to open rooms now. Adults to adults, youth to youth.
I don't want to miss it, so I'm trying to get it right there. I'm moving the needle ever so slightly, trying to inch it without missing it. So thank you for patience for a minute.
All right, adults, are you staying here, or should we stay here then?
I'm not,
yes.
Yeah.
Can you not select the? Nobody actually went in there.
There's nothing to select. We didn't get anything to select.
Nothing popped up.
We're just hanging. We're just hanging. Looking
This is easy to just stay here. I mean,
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Marina.
I
haven't seen you in forever. I know, it's been a
I
long
know.
time. I'm glad to be back.
Some adult joy too.
Hi,
There, so here we
Esther.
go.
I was like dying to get in at 8:50, but the link went in my junk mail, and I was like, aha! How do I find? I really missed the fishbowl, but I'm glad to be here.
Okay, now he's gonna read.
No worries. We did record it. We read this once, so I'm gonna try this one more time here.
So
Go ahead for now.
all the youth are in the room by themselves.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Is it that the youth just knew how to select a room and we didn't? Or is that?
There was nothing that.
There is an adult room. You can go up and choose.
But don't worry,
sorry,
nobody's there.
sorry, y'all.
Nobody's
I'm
there.
Trying
We're
to
all here.
technology.
All right, here we go. Mental health from the perspective of BIPOC student activists. So, Esther, this is what we read, and then the students talk about their writing process. Without tangible mental health support, students, especially BIPOC, have been left to fend for themselves throughout remote learning. In an attempt to remedy the emotional damage caused by the abrupt closing of schools, the recent switch to hybrid learning has ironically been handled in the same haphazard manner, with the causes of these mental health complications remaining unaddressed. Our educational system teaches students that academic success holds greater value than our health. We're in a position where we must suppress our mental and emotional needs to survive. When the pandemic hit, we suddenly had the time and space to express ourselves freely, leading us to recognize the severity of our struggles and the damages imposed by the educational system. While the school environment has its own faults, isolation has made the management of mental health and academic success increasingly difficult. Numerous elements of in-person school cannot be recreated online, such as connecting and collaborating with peers and effective communication with teachers. There is little to no opportunity for teamwork, a skill we've been conditioned to depend on since primary school. They're taken out of an environment rich in support and dropped into seclusion. Additionally, it's impossible to replicate the structure and discipline on-campus school brings, and the collective focus of students has crumbled. Expecting our independent performance to be on par with such on-campus is entirely unrealistic. Furthermore, we're struggling to set boundaries within our spaces. Our bedrooms have become places for in-class learning, homework, leisure, and rest. Even our devices fail to divide work and play. We're in a productivity limbo and losing the dichotomy between academia and relaxation. Despite forced adjustments brought on by the pandemic, we're still obligated to perform at impossible standards. These expectations have an undeniable toll on the mental health of all students. However, it's important to acknowledge that white supremacy culture amplifies this effect on BIPOC students. Characteristics of white supremacy culture include perfectionism, sense of urgency, quantity over quality, and individualism. The foundational whiteness of our educational system remains undetected or ignored by white educators and peers. So key. While it's true that all students feel a need to maintain proximity to whiteness, for BIPOC, this benchmark is impossible for us to reach, making us vulnerable to feelings of failure. On top of coping with white supremacy culture, BIPOC students are forced to endure the school environment despite the racial harassment we may face on a daily basis. Due to the persistent trauma of racial violence, most notably the increased coverage of police brutality, BIPOC are strikingly aware of our existence in an environment that wasn't made for us. Lack of acknowledgement or blatant insensitivity pressures us into hiding our hardship without any support. In not addressing the specific needs of BIPOC students, you're failing us. The task of advocating for mental health is placed in time and time again on the students' shoulders of the same students that haven't had a break since August. This is not sustainable. Student activists are rapidly burning out trying to regulate our mental health while supporting others. The cycle of trauma, exhaustion, and fruitless labor begets disruption. We need solutions. There have been feeble attempts at extending support in an online setting. However, much of that responsibility has been set on students. Furthermore, said quote support boils down to tired out advice and hotline numbers. Though these problems seem insurmountable, better solutions to these challenges exist. Someone's coming in. Youth have the power to demand change, but it's up to adults to take action. Forcing BIPOC students to forfeit our innocence and solve problems manufactured by generations of white supremacy exemplifies a lack of accountability of people in power. It isn't our responsibility to solve systemic issues that have been neglected for decades. Youth mental health must be prioritized without the burden of change resting on the victims of the system. It should not take 650 words for adults to notice that we are at a breaking point. All right. For now, put a speaking order in there. I read that, so I'm gonna pass to Erin.
So my first thought is, should they not get this published by the Seattle Times, I want to do what I can to get it published somewhere. So I'm already thinking about places that I serve on the PDK board. So those of you that are teachers, the Cap'n magazine, I serve on that board. And even though it's devoted to teachers, it's really devoted to equity in teaching. And I think that I could get them to publish this if Seattle Times doesn't. I would offer to just publicize it on my social media, but I want them to get a professional something because I think their words are important enough that this needs to be read by lots of people. And so my first response to this was, we got to make sure this gets published somewhere big. My second thought about this is I would love to see them flesh it out into a bigger, whatever bigger looks like. I think just knowing the ladies in this group, they could write 5,000 words, which is probably too much. So they need some sort of container. But I would love to see them do a bigger piece too, that's maybe 3 times the size. Just and see if we can get that out somewhere too, because I think there is a lot they're missing, that they know they're missing, that I would love to see them be honored in all their work. So those are my initial thoughts. And I pass to Pernell.
Thank you, Erin. You and I are on the same page. I'm already thinking about the publisher that you have, and they have journaled the Root of Our Youth book. I'm already visioning chapter Fia, chapter Zena Zinga, chapter. And
oh my gosh,
they can tell their story of co-founding this group, and it all hinges on what that op-ed, what they just said. Look what we're having to face that is going undetected and untouched by white supremacy culture, educator, all of that. And so I'm thinking of that book, or I put in the chat, this sounds like a blog. They should be getting, this can go well into their college years and pay for their college. I'm just thinking like the whole process and who they bring to it. It can't be separated now. I mean, it's too good. And it's been deep for a long time, and they're finding each other in a way that supports them, that's going to carry them a long time. I would have done anything to have found this in my youth, and have been trying to create that all of my adult life, and saying what they're saying and feeling. And I'm just like, finally, there it is right there. And so, yes, Erin, right there, it needs to be amplified, blog it, book it, publish it, and continue it everywhere for the rest of it, because there's more kids who wants a chapter in there. Come on in. That's, yeah. I pass to, who did I take? Morelia. Hi, Maury. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Yeah, I think for me, I would have loved to see that full paper before they had to reduce it. They talked a lot about having to fit the container of what was expected of them. And I would have loved to see what they came up with without having to, fit to any sort of container, just who they were and what they wanted to bring to the table. And support that as adults. Supporting whatever they have to say is our job. It's not our job to tell them how many words they have to say it, or I don't know. I just would have loved to see that full version, because I know that they had to cut themselves down a whole lot, and it kind of reflects what they've been put through in general. But yeah, I would love to see it published as well. But I think that, yeah, they should really bring together what they want to bring, edit it in the way that they want to edit it without any of our constraints or anything. So that's it for me. I'll pass to Karen.
I'm just really impressed with the quality of the work that the youth are doing, and I definitely agree on publishing and getting it out there. So I'm trying to think of connections I might have as well. I also love that they're drawing attention to the systems of white supremacy, because that's what I've learned the most about in my journey of how to do better. And the idea that high achievement causes so much of this mental anguish and perfectionism, things that I've been through in my life, but not seen as systems of white supremacy. It makes all the difference. And so I'm here to support in the best ways that I can. And I pass to Esther.
I got the tail end of one of the ladies' speaking, saying that she was really annoyed or upset by the having to shrink down what they originally wrote. And I kind of heard from Fernell yesterday about that they did this together and how exciting. So I hear them. And then I know that when I had to do my national boards, they make you shrink it down to a certain limit, right? And so it forces, you know, they say it forces you to be more clear, it forces you to be more, you know, bullet type of language, but that also in and of itself is kind of restricting, right? And it limits their actual emotions and feelings, which is why they're even writing it in the first place. So that makes me realize, you know, that's a systemic thing, you know, here's your limits, squeeze it in here. And so I don't know, I think it's okay for adults to do that to each other, but not like especially if you're trying to like do something like criteria wise to, I don't know, national boards is literally just jumping through hoops. That's what it is. But to do that with kids, yes, it's a money thing. And to do that to kids, I really think it's very weird because there is no money tied to that. This is just their open space for, and we're still restricting them. So it's very odd. And when I was in the room, I got a message from one of the students and they recognized me and I was like, I never had you. I know all my students that I had. And she said I had two of her younger sisters and she remembered my name. And I remembered her immediately as soon as she said that. And so these kids they're sharp. They know, they remember their teachers. And, you know, I'm sure teachers would love to know what their kids are thinking. And I think about my elementary kids and how they're at in high school now. They're all at Bothell High School now. And so, you know, I only know one teacher at Bothell High School and I just said, look out for these kids, you know, and that's all I can do coming from where I am. But yeah, the kids should have a place to speak. So they wrote a pretty powerful statement. And vulnerable too, way to be vulnerable for them too, because I feel like BIPOC families, me being one myself, we try to grit and just try to shine and try to do it, you know, just make it. And it's just hard. And I just realized if you do make it, you're glorified and then you're kind of used against the rest of the group. So yeah. So it's kind of silly. And I pass to Karina.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just so good to have time to be in a space just to hear the words of the students, even though they are really distilled in a really beautiful, clear way, but also like, oh, what's more underneath the surface that had to get cut. And just to hear them talk through the process and how, so I'm a high school social worker in Bellevue School District. Just how different it feels to just sit in a call where they take that leadership and then we just give them this, or they have the space to just talk through and we get to just be there and listen, and how different that is from what the school day looks like. And I think what I'm thinking about is like, oh yes, how can I share this with my colleagues and with my district, and I would love to see it published, and they deserve that platform, and these are things that educators need to hear. And then also, like, they articulate so much of what the students that I'm working with are expressing. And so just thinking about how I can bring this to the students and say, like, here, like, let's talk about this together. Like, I've heard you say things like this, like, does this resonate? How do you feel? Have you considered this part? Let's talk about that, and thinking about what that could look like, and how, like, thinking about for now, how you were mentioning, like, oh, wouldn't have been so cool if when I was in high school, like, I would have had, sorry, for the background noise, something like this, and just the power of hearing other students who look like you articulating what you've been feeling and being able to step into like, yes, it's not just me. So I'll pass it back to Vincent. I think I'm the last one.
Thank you. So I quoted from the piece for BIPOC students to forfeit our innocence and solve problems manufactured by generations of white supremacy exemplifies a lack of accountability of people in power. Such wisdom. And I mean, I'm 45. I just turned 45 last month, and been in this for a little while. La Cima is almost 20 years old, and it's a bilingual leadership camp. And this has me questioning what I thought was empowerment, right? Because I know that when we develop our identities, our ethnic identities, we're more inclined to serve our community, but there is something in, and I've always really believed in Terje Yoso's, community cultural wealth and all of our, aspirational capital, linguistic capital, but resistant capital, something I've always been trying to harness, that they have these critiques and I want to bring people together. And so, oh, hey, Marla.
I was wondering if we could have a little extra time for the breakout rooms, because we were just doing like check-ins and we're almost out of time.
Sure. Unfortunately, because I have it on a timer, it's going to force everybody back, but I can just open them right after that happens.
Okay, that works. Thank you.
Cool. Just let everybody know they can go right back when they. Cool. Thank you, Marla. That's fun. I love it. So officially, we're supposed to take a break in 2 minutes, but I'll just reopen the rooms and let them go back. So questioning without to create, and I've seen, especially undocumented people who have to become activists just to go to college, right? The wear and the tear on their psyche over time. And they're in community and they're doing this work. So I don't know, they just have me questioning kind of my practice. So I'll pass to Erin.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm next, because I wanted to share what you said struck something that I shared. So I got to speak to Bryn Mawr, the athletes, yesterday at my college that took 30 years. I have been reaching out to my college for 30 years to come back and talk. And it wasn't until one of the soccer players' moms heard me speak this year and said, oh, why don't you have Erin Jones talking to your team? That finally they reached out, and I got to talk to them yesterday. And one of the students reached out on Twitter right afterwards and said, man, I needed to hear you give us a break, because we have been fighting to be the best at everything. And what you said, Vincent, about proving yourself and advocacy feeling like empowering. I was telling the story yesterday with the women at Bryn Mawr that my son is now 24 and he's just got a scholarship for his last year of grad school at USC, and I'm super proud of him. I mean, he has done the work, but when he was 8 years old and he was tested for the gifted program, the district administrator accused him of cheating on the test. He was 8 years old. He was the only Black child testing at the time, the only Black child. There was actually, he was the only brown person testing. So we're in a room of all white people. It's he and I in the room. And I was not Erin Jones at the time. I was just mom at the time. In fact, I was in my second year of teaching in Tacoma. We didn't live in Tacoma, but I was teaching in Tacoma. And so he's the only brown child being tested, and he's bigger than everybody else. So he probably looked like he was 10, but he was only 8. He had just turned 8. And the administrator comes into the room and in front of all the family says, I think your son cheated. In front of everybody, says it to the entire room. I think your son cheated on this test. Well, my husband at the time was a pastor. So I had to think really, in that moment, I had to think about, how am I going to respond here? Because how I respond is going to affect my husband as well.
Mari, real quick, Erin. No, you haven't got time together. Go have a party. Meet Maricruz. Enough adults. Go play.
Sorry. I was trying to cut that part.
I love them. Anyway, so I'm sitting in this, oh, there we go. Okay. So I'm sitting in this lobby of the school district office. This is before I know anything about school district administration. Like, I am just an English teacher. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I just know. And by the way, I had to fight to get my son tested. So not only are we testing, he was not recommended for testing. I had to fight to get him tested. He taught himself how to multiply at 5. At 5 years old, he did my 9th grade neighbor's homework. And I knew then we got to get him tested. He was not recommended by his teacher. I had to go fight for him at the district. And then the district administrator comes in and says, I think he cheated. And before I could reach out and touch him, I still remember this man. In fact, I saw him about 5 years ago. And I had this visceral, like I almost vomited. He walked into an equity meeting, y'all, that I was speaking in. And I had to stop talking and ground in because I had this visceral emotional reaction to just physically seeing him. Anyway, my son is on the spectrum. So he doesn't have filters and he had no idea what was happening. Here's what he said immediately. Sir, I'll just take the test again and score higher. And people always cheer when I get to that part of his story, but it pisses me off. Because here's what I'll tell you now about him. He's 24. When he was 21 at Harvey Mudd, I remember I flew to Harvey Mudd for his 21st birthday. So mom flies to his college for his 21st birthday. Because here's what he said to me. He said, Mom, if one more person asked me if I'm here on a football scholarship, I think I might hurt someone. So I flew to his college for his 21st birthday to take him out and remind him, honey, you are smart and you don't have to prove to anybody that you're not a football player. Like he's 6'4", 300 pounds. I'm not a football, like not at all. My husband's a college football player. I'm a baller. He's not. But I had to fly all the way there to help him see. And so that's not advocacy. And we are doing such incredible harm. And we see those kids as being incredible advocates, but the mental harm that is done for him is incredible. And so just what you said, Vincent, is just so true that it feels like advocacy and we celebrate it as advocacy and look at these kids. And then you read this article, and this is why every teacher and every superintendent needs to see this article, because this is what we are doing to our babies. We're lifting them up as, look at them, look at the cream of the crop, but you're doing violence to them every stinking day. Sorry, that was way too long, but that struck a nerve.
No, thank you for that. That's right on. They have to be excellent or they're nothing. And that keeps getting proved over in real time. And I did this with a white administrator in our district. And I had to like link arms with him and walk him through about 6 months of watching me hold these Black girls and what they were going through with their teachers. And so he finally saw it because he helped one of my students with her some essay or whatnot, and or didn't even help her, he just recognized, oh my gosh, she's brilliant. You know, all of these people have said she's got an IEP and you know, and everybody's just, you know, throwing her away and not serving her and everything. And so he finally got to sit with her and see what was in there and how it came out. And he was like, oh my gosh, I don't need it. I don't even need it. This is great. And so she turns it in, and the teacher immediately turns it back with an F on it. Not enough, you know, I can remember. So I screenshotted it and sent it to this administrator who's an assistant superintendent of our district. Send it to him. I said, here's what your work got back. I said, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they're but they have to be beyond to be considered just what mediocre middle class white suburbia world does, or they're just deemed garbage. I said they have nowhere in between to be or go. And so every year, and I'm like, does anybody notice that every year the humanitarian award, the highest, you know, equity of our district, Black girls win that consistently. Black and brown girls are always the ones of the recipients of that. They have to be excellent, be human, but they don't get to live and be children at the same time. That's punishment. That's prison. That's hell. And I know it because I'm the keeper of that. So yeah.
And we'll pause right there. It's really weird watching myself, but okay. Take a breath on that and some response. Let's continue around the circle and continue any response or things that stood out for you. I'll pass to Dave.
You know, I think one thing that stood out to me was just that the power of language. You know, I'll say it again. I think that each one of us, you know, we all have gifts, and sometimes it takes us a little bit of time for those gifts to really nurture themselves and come out in a powerful way. And I'm all for the students. So as adults, it's great that we try to put things together for students, but really, you know, those young adults, those are our future leaders. And the fact that each one of you has done this much work, working on the op-ed, staying focused, staying determined, you really are, these really are a great group of young adults. And, you know, like I said, I just wish that I was half of what they are at their age, because if I was, boy, I feel like I'm a bad dude already, but I could just only imagine, you know. So it's just hearing what they have to say. It's I'm kind of talking to them like they're here to hear it, and that's the weird part about it. I have to catch myself, like they're not really, you know, but
They'll hear it. It's being recorded, so
yeah. I mean, it's just this is just a very powerful group, and you know, leadership comes in so many different forms and so many different styles. I remember one of the first recordings that kept saying, oh, you know, this person, you know, they really did this and this was so big, and she kept us on track. But understand that each one of you played your part. Each one of you played your role, and on the next project, someone else can be the lead or whatever it might be, however it turns out. But regardless of whatever you come across, whatever foes you might see, I mean, you're going to come across so many different people that are going to try to stop you from doing this type of work, because there's a lot of fear out there. And even as far as adults go, I want you to understand that. I said this the other day, but you know, the young adults, they're ready to have these conversations. It's the adults that are not ready to have these conversations. So don't ever let don't ever let anyone take away from you what makes you. You know, and you always have to stand for something, because if you stand for something, you know, you got to stand. If you don't stand for something, you're going to fall for nothing. You know, so stand on your feet and keep doing what you're doing. I just think this is just some good work. So I appreciate each and every one of you. I wish I had you working. I wish I had you as a student in my school when you were in middle school, because we would, I mean, just to see where you're at right now, definitely do some damage. So thanks to each and every one of you. Very much appreciated.
thank you, Dave. And they are there in the middle school. Their younger siblings are there. There's a bunch of diamonds there that we just need to keep digging out. So thank you. Other responses? All right. Damaris, will you go ahead? Damaris, will you get ready to read your op-ed, please, in just a minute? And Elise is going to speak to us.
Took me a second to realize I wasn't looking at the screen, that we had moved from the recording to the live. I feel all of this. I was in the story that the woman told about her child and being told that they cheated. And then each of those stories resonated with me, and from the adult chat, just sitting with how the youth work inspires us to remember. I remember making a promise to myself when I was a teenager that I'd never forget, because adults were hypocrites and I didn't want to be that. I wanted to remember the capabilities that I had, so I could remember that the young people I work with are capable. And they're all highly capable. And the struggle for the shifts and how we even see what capability is and how we measure it by tests, which is, you know, its own can of worms. A test, some people can take tests, some people can't. That doesn't make it the measure of your intelligence. And so all of that, it just brings emotions forward. I remember being really good at taking tests. I knew how to break down the questions. I knew exactly what they wanted. And because of that, I was separated from my friends and put into a classroom with all white kids. And the struggle I had with the being poor and a black or brown and being with these rich white kids in a public school with all black kids. It was just this terrible brain messed up thing in Seattle public schools. And then watching how they would hold me back so that I couldn't progress. And just feeling the powerlessness. It's funny, somebody said, Dave, I think it was you, David, you wish you would have had them in middle school. But what I looked like in middle school was skipping school and doing drugs, because I was tired already in middle school. So it's like, to identify, I say we like I'm still the youth. It's funny because you thought I was when we started.
I know.
But
I get it, girl.
we don't come to school like that.
Right.
Because school doesn't come at us like that.
Right.
And when you're treated like you're less than, you're gonna be like, all right,
I'm gonna give you less than.
and I'm gonna go and I'm gonna smoke and I'm gonna drink and I'm gonna hang out and go somewhere where people I can just be myself. And all of my good, bad, and ugly. So that was me anyway, and that's the youth I work with. And that I just like, I feel you, kid. And these are also the brilliance. This is the brilliance that's being hidden from the world purposefully by the education system, because we're not looking for brilliance. We're looking for labor, wage labor. We're not looking for stars that shine. We're looking for people that mine, you know? So
right.
it hurts me every day. But I can go on and on. But I just really am appreciative of the adults who showed up that day and had the conversation and reminded me why I do the work that I do.
Yes. Yep. Join us anytime. We'd love to have you. Yes. Damaris, are you almost ready? I'm going to show our slide deck real quick of the Root of Our Youth and let you see some of the other pieces of their work and then how to join them. And we'll finish out with Damaris reading her written testimony for speaking out against critical race theory.
I just want to say it. This is Tracy again.
Oh, yes. Go ahead, Tracy.
I had the exact same experience as Aaron's son when I was a student. And I grew up in Southern California in a Mexican-American neighborhood. And my teacher advocated for me to get tested for advanced learning. And the person who administered the test accused me of cheating. And I was the only Mexican-American female student in the cohort of gifted learners, right? In a Mexican-American community, like, yeah. So that story really resonated with me. And I ended up dropping out of advanced learning in 9th grade because it was so white and I just couldn't hang with that anymore, right? So yeah, putting the teacher hat back on, we all have work to do.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
They have a podcast about that high cap program and what it has done to them, their peers. It's beautiful. I'm going to put in the chat or show you where to get all that information to be able to hear more wisdom and brilliance that they'd like to share with us to help us do our work. So thank you all for being here again. And here goes that share real quick. Let's try it. Okay, let me know. Are you seeing slide deck? Give me a thumbs up, anybody? Let's see if we're seeing that. I'm just going to run through it real quickly, and you can see this on our website. So oops, their mission and how they started Black Lives Matter in schools, and they have followed and support the demands. They also formed their, here, let me do this. Their found each other during summer of 2020 around George Floyd, and they held a live protest and rally in downtown Bothell, which is something I thought I'd never seen in my lifetime. And it was a beautiful job. It was a concert. It was an educational lesson. The whole video is right here. You can see that also on Facebook. They held a statewide virtual rally, the first of its kind, 500 people to show up to support not going back to school without the tools and support and education that reaches us all. And so at the bottom, you'll see all of it was pre-K, preschool through college was supporting this act to have no seats in September. We're not going to take our seat until we get our needs met. And one of the videos, or they did a couple of videos to make that powerful message, is I'll go back to school when, and then several students submitted their own demands. So I'll go back to school when I don't have to hear my peers racialized or their food made fun of, all those kind of things that we see them going through even today. And so another one is, dear teacher, you know how you pin the notes to your chest when you're in kindergarten to let your teacher know what bus you ride and where you're going to get picked up and things like that. But here's a stronger message about I don't want to be racialized at school. I don't want to be racially isolated and traumatized. And so messages from our youth about that. So those are great videos to watch. And then they wrote 10 recommendations that educators and educational leaders can do right now. So after they're spending 82 weeks together in these online spaces, and again, I didn't have any of these students in a direct class. They've never had me as a teacher, or Aaron either, but the space that we made and held, that they would show up 3 or 4 times a week for an hour to be together, collaborate, listen, see each other, learn, just exactly what you heard them talk about. And so those recommendations, you can share that, see those on the link. And then here's their beautiful faces again, all of those who participated in the mental health op-ed, and it was published in the League of Education Voters news listserv and went out to 5,000 of their patrons. And so we're still working on getting it published and writing the next chapters of this mental health op-ed. Their goals are to help and support and be part of school boards. Yes, they would like compensation for their knowledge, wisdom, and expertise, and to not be extracted from. They would like protection from retaliation and speaking up and speaking out their truth of their lived experiences inside their schools and communities. And so those are the ways that they can do that, is they can do teach-ins, half days and full days. They can hold fish bowls, panel like what we're doing now, and panel discussions. They lead racial healing circles and restorative justice practices and have been trained in that, and ongoing advisory education. So, and it can be clock hours can be made for that. And so they want you to know that they center and support and protect Black women and girls, that chip away the violence that is normalized in American policy, and that everyone is welcome to support them in this mission, and that nobody is excluded. But if we don't explicitly say that we are supporting Black girls and men, that we are leaving out a place where they are, where they can feel belonging and show up as their full selves. And so the perfect prayer is, she is a beautiful child and didn't even know, because in her life, no one ever told her so. She listened carefully to what others said and remembered the pictures in the storybook she read. No one spoke of her, and she could not recall a princess or queen that looked like her at all. But she was very smart, and each day offered a small prayer that asked not to be made different, but simply that she would not care. That was Dr. Mona Lake Jones. And again, as I said, they've got at least 12 to 15 podcasts on all of these different topic areas, and would love to share their words and wisdom with you. And you can find them on Spotify. They also to participate in the State Board of Education, which Tracy will be talking more about tomorrow. And so we're going to hear from Damaris real quick to hear her written testimony against CRT. They have done this work to change graduation requirements that are affecting youth statewide. So joining the Root of Our Youth in these practices and learning about legislation is crucial and available. Other places that they have spoken on: the Lunch and Learn at League of Education Voters. There's other youth that they connect with all around the state. As we said, the NAACP group, Washington Ethnic Studies Now youth group, Washington Student Leaders youth group, and just local schools that they've gotten to know and see their faces and voices around the state. And so that is just kind of an overview of what they are, what they put together and continue to support and build with each other. So thank you again for all coming tonight. And I want to end with Damaris, if you're ready to read, are you there? We'd love to hear your beautiful voice and your powerful words, if you'd like. Thank you.
All right, thanks for now.
And we've only got about 2 or 3 minutes, so I'm going to have you read a little bit fast. Going to cut off at 8.
It's going to cut off at 8. Alrighty. My name is Damaris Ibrahim. I am a high school senior, a member of the Root of Our Youth, and I am testifying against HB 1087 because it will only cause more harm to students in Washington State, no matter the color of their skin. As a biracial girl who has grown up in Washington State, the discomfort of speaking about race in the classroom is something I've experienced firsthand. I always wanted to be more like my white mother, white peers, white teachers, white guest authors and speakers, white scientists, and white music composers. I was educated from the dominant perspective, which didn't reflect my identity. Therefore, I rejected and despised that part of myself because without being told, I saw that it made me different in a way that wasn't valued by society. It is wrong to assume that talking about race in classroom favors one racial group over another when deference is given to the dominant group in every single other topic at school and in greater American culture. The danger arises not in kids being harmed by radical rhetoric, but rather by limiting the learning and diverse discovery that students are permitted to have about themselves and the world around them. HB 1087, which attempts to address the chasm between racial groups by standardizing education through a quote-unquote colorblind lens, will only exacerbate the situation, as it won't allow schools to be a place of healing and growth. My healing took place through the Root of Our Youth, an organization of students who advocate for equity in education. Over the pandemic and through Zoom meetings and virtual classroom and events, we discovered the parts of history that aren't in our textbooks and brought them into the spotlight, created a podcast that highlights the diverse scope of our students' experiences, including youth who are immigrants, disabled, BIPOC, or LGBTQ+. We identified the shared experiences of people of color and made connections to what was happening in our world, as well as in our classrooms. Engaging in spaces with the Root of Our Youth allowed me to understand what I felt in elementary and middle school, and redefine the worth and value I had in my identity as a Black biracial individual. It helped me understand why things are the way they are, and what I can do to create change, not just for education, but for a better future. Critical race theory and texts that promote similar ways of thinking are not meant to single out any particular groups of students or create division by race, but rather challenge all students to see different people's lived experiences and truly think about how it is connected to them. In my AP English Language and Composition class, we covered critical thinking in depth. We learned to question everything, ask what it is really saying, and the importance of thinking for ourselves. The same concept is applied to critical race theory, which is a way of thinking about America's history through the lens of racism. It uses our ability to critically think and analyze how the construct of race impacts every institution in all aspects of our lives. While I understand how language such as dismantling the system and deconstructing racism can come across as intimidating or as a threat, the impacts of fear, hatred, systemic and structural racism within institutions cannot be ignored, and they yield tragic outcomes for Washington's public education system. An important part of critical thinking is to question everything, but questioning is different than doubt. Staying in doubt for too long stirs up uncertainty, which generates fear, and fear creates division. If one of the state's goals is to unify its youth and raise up a generation that makes America one nation, indivisible with liberty and justice for all, then it must be challenged to seek something beyond the simple but futile solution of remaining colorblind. It is a disservice to all students, as taking away controversial topics and current events from the classroom will leave students unprepared when they encounter them in the real world. Students should have the chance to learn to handle controversy in school in a safe space and be equipped with the knowledge to form their own thoughts and opinions as part of the high-quality standard education that the state wishes to provide. Conversations about race in the classroom do not send messages of self-hatred to white students and are age-appropriate for elementary students as well. I participate in Becoming, a year-round multi-generational Zoom class where people of all ages and backgrounds come together to learn about identity. We have 2 white students who are 11 and 13 years old. In the 5th and 7th grades, these students were able to learn about race, racism, and injustice against kids their age who look different than them, and understand the difference between the emotional impact and their own self-worth and value. They were able to get to this point because of the mentors, teachers, and other students who were there to support them. They are not exceptional, as every white student and individual I've known to be in one of these virtual spaces that promotes conversations about race has shown that they are able to learn about the discomfort and ugliness of racism and how it is intertwined with how our American society functions, and come through the other side with a sense of liberation, peace, and a better understanding and acceptance of themselves than before. These topics and conversations are not beyond the minds of younger students either. Research published by the American Psychology Association shows that children begin to become conscious of race by infancy and make their own assumptions by the time they are in preschool. The study's co-author, Jessica Sullivan, PhD, states that children are capable of thinking about all sorts of complex topics at a very young age, even if adults don't talk to kids about race. Children will work to make sense of their world and will come up with their own ideas, which may be inaccurate or detrimental. If not taught otherwise, children will form their own ideas about race, and delaying conversations about race in K and beyond will have a huge negative impact on how students proceed to interact with each other and themselves. Refusing to acknowledge that there is something not right with the way that our current society treats its people of color, intended or not, and banning it in schools under the guise of maintaining a uniform, quality education for everyone causes more harm to all students. Whether black or white, it will damage the way they grow to see themselves and interact with others in their community. I stand as con against HB 1087 because the limitations that it would enforce will only further harm the learning and well-being of future Washington students. Our state government should uphold its paramount duty to all Washington state students by ensuring that this bill is not passed.
Take a breath on that. I'm going to say this, that her mom called her to dinner and Damara says, "Give me 2 minutes, Mom, I'm changing the world." And you just saw how she did it right there. And love that. Love my root of our youth, and can't wait to see more of our youth tomorrow night with Washington Ethnic Studies Now. So thank you all for coming. Excellent job. Thank you for sharing. We'll see you next time. And I left everything in the chat so you can find us. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you, Ms. Miller.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here, everyone. Bye.